Oh yeah, baby. It's that time again, once again, to do a little IMNSHOW, in my not so humble opinion. I'm DP Knudten, the person with that not so humble opinion, and I get on here periodically to do a live stream about anything I feel like talking about, or things I want to share. Today, I'm going to share something that a lot of people have asked me about, and that is, hey, DP, your podcast sounds pretty good. Do you do a whole lot of post-production? Do you actually pay for services, et cetera, et cetera? And the answer to that question is, yes, I actually pay a lot of attention to that post-production, but no, I don't like to pay for it. Why? Because I'm a dad of daughters. Let's just leave it at that. The dollars I have are better spent on them than some type of service that can do a couple of things that I can actually teach myself and learn and, use to maximize. And again, the only thing I'm really spending is my time, my energy, and my personal bandwidth, not my cash. And so for all you people out there who say, well, you got to spend a lot of money to actually do things like create a podcast or live stream or stuff like that. No, you don't. You have to be smart. And one of the ways that I hope you get smarter is by maybe learning something from something I have to share. So with that said, I am going to show you how I finish an episode of my Nonfiction Brand podcast. It's the beginning of September, Sunday, September 3rd. And that means I need to restart my podcast after a kind of extended summer hiatus. And to do that, I've already gone through and done a lot of the editing that you can see right here in GarageBand. So let me give you a lay of the land here. This top DPK Vox, well, that's exactly what it says it is. It's my voice track. But you can see down here, I've got a guest voice track. Now, why do I do that? Well, because my microphone and my studio setup tends to sound one way, but theirs might sound significantly different. And I need to do something to kind of come up with a common denominator for the sound of the actual episode. And so to do that, I'm going to take my stuff and leave it on that top line or that top track. And their stuff, I'm just going to clip it and move it directly south to their own track. That allows me to do a couple of things, not the least of which is EQ, equalization. And again, I don't want to talk about EQ now because that's a huge topic. I want to focus on what I'm doing to finish up this episode. Maybe someday I'll go back and look at these bad boys and show you exactly what I'm talking about there. But for now, I just want to share with you this. One, this episode is actually 2 episodes. Oops, this is a little bit of a trick I do, which is I get one person on, I do an interview for 1 hour, and then I turn it into 2 separate episodes that premiere on subsequent weeks. So there's a week A and a week B. Well, I need to do something about that. And that is create those 2 separate episodes. Now, when I'm doing production, I will automatically I've got a clock right above my camera right there. I'll keep an eye on that. When it's getting close to the half-hour mark, I'm going to do a natural outro. And then I'll do a pause. And then we'll go into the next week's thing. So what you can see right here is that this whole section right there, that's next week's episode. So what I'm going to do, first thing, very simple. I am going to say goodbye to it. I'm going to delete it because I don't need it. And by the way, I have already copied this file and into a new folder. I'm not losing next week's episode. I just copied this session where I left off. And now I can go into this session again and clean it up so that it is a solo episode that is about 20 minutes long. That's my goal length, and that's exactly where we ended up. So I got rid of that. And as I increase this, you can see, okay, I've got a number of things going on. One, I've got room tone. Room tone. Oh my God. That is something we will talk about someday, but not today. But boy, room tone is the equivalent of spackle. If you've ever had to take a drywall and fill in some nail holes or bigger holes and stuff like that, you'll probably use a product called spackle, which is you just scrape it on, shove it in the hole a little bit, and then you can paint over it and the wall looks beautiful. Well, that's what room tone is for a podcast. We'll talk about that some other time. Anyway, back to what I'm doing. You can see, so I've got the final part of the episode here. I've got the room tone. As the music comes in, I'm literally physically dropping the room tone out. I've got a little bit of outro, and then I've got a music cue that you can hear. So let's just listen to this for a sec. I'm your host, as always, DP Knudten, and she is
Heather Ewing, Abstract Commercial Real Estate.
And we'll be talking at you again next week. Bye-bye. Okay, that was a little tight. That bye-bye was a little tight, so I'm actually going to move my outro music just a skosh. And maybe just a little more. I'm going to sneeze, so bear with me. Sorry about that. So let's listen again. And we'll be talking at you again next week. Bye-bye. Okay, I like that. So I need to create a file out of this. And one of the things that I really don't like about GarageBand is this right here, the live area for the recording. You can see it. You don't even know this setting is there unless you shrink down all the way and you can see, oh, that little triangle there. Well, this is what you want to do just to tell the encoder, hey, don't encode 5 hours of crap. Just do the live area. And so I'm just butting it up to right about there. And again, I can really fine tune it if I want to by expanding or making the track more visible. And then you can see what I'm doing right here. If I do a Command A, that is the stuff that is going to be encoded into a file or share that I will take into a second program. So I'm going to go up in the top command navigation for GarageBand, which you aren't going to be able to see, but there is under the share command. Hold on a sec. Under the share command, there is a command that's called export song to disk. I'm going to go ahead and hit that. And you can see right there, it's telling me, okay, what do you want to do? I want to save an AIFF file, which is a lossless file, meaning that it's not going to compress anything. And I want to save this as, make sure, yeah, I'll leave the date and time on it because that's sometimes helpful. I'm going to go ahead and export this as a lossless AIFF file for later use in Audacity. You can see it's bouncing. Bouncing is the term, meaning take the music that's in GarageBand or the soundtrack that's in GarageBand and bounce it out. It's like exporting, but the term that's used in music production is you bounce it. You bounce it out. It's like bouncing a ball out of your yard. You're going to bounce it to someplace where you can get that ball and use it someplace else. So this is almost done. Because I'm creating an AIFF file, which is a lossless file, it's going to be a pretty big file. Not onerously big, but big enough. Now that has saved to my folder that I've already created for Nonfiction Brand episode 223 with Heather Ewing. And so I hop over to Audacity. Now, Apple's GarageBand is free. If you're a Mac OS user, you've got it or can download it free. And it does 98% 98.5% of the stuff I want it to do, but it doesn't do this. And that's why I use Audacity. I'm going to open the file. Hold on. I'm going to open Nonfiction Brand Podcast 223 with Heather Ewing. You can see the AIFF file right there. I'm going to open that file. It does its thing and goes, oh, great, look at that. That's the entire file. Now, this is where I love Audacity, which again is a free program. I am going to highlight this, and there are basically 2 or 3 things that I do in Audacity to make it sound better. Under the top navigation, which you won't be able to see, I believe, I am going to go to Effect. And under Effect, there is this is such a killer technique, a thing called Truncate Silence. Now, okay, this bears a little bit of DP explanation. To truncate silence, what Audacity does is it looks for gaps where it goes silent, not completely silent because of that good old room tone, but let's say it's looking for any section that is at minus 30 decibels or below. It will say, here's a section, and then you can set in truncate silence how much you want to shorten that. So as I go to truncate silence, you can see I've got a number of settings. The threshold, minus 30. Okay, minus 30 dB means, hey, any gap that is of a sound volume of minus 30 decibels, go ahead and compress it to 60% of its full duration. So what does that mean? It's going to take 40% of that duration and just squeeze it a little bit, just shorten it a little bit. Why do I do this? Because people, when they're having a conversation, they speak slower than your ear can hear and appreciate, So if I'm doing just a little bit, I'm just finish sanding the episode just a little bit. And you can see exactly what I'm talking about by keeping an eye down here. You see where it says, way down at the bottom, it says 20 minutes and 6 seconds and 0.692. Watch what this does. It's actually pretty fun. So remember, the number to remember is 20 minutes and 6 seconds and change. I hit that, apply, it does its thinking, and all of a sudden 20 minutes and 6 seconds becomes 19 minutes and 29 seconds. It literally, over the course of the entire episode, was able to remove almost, it's actually over a minute, something like that. And again, you can see if I do a Command Z, 20 minutes, do a Command Shift Z, do you see the diff? Not a huge diff, but it's the difference between something that sounds good and kind of is professional, and it doesn't waste your time. So that's why I do this. So after I've truncated silence, I want to do something else. And again, under the Effect, northern navigation, if you will, the top nav, under Effect, there is a compressor. All right, so what is a compressor? A compressor is, the best way to think of it is, it's like a panini press, meaning it takes the bottom and anything really, really quiet, it's going to raise up a little bit, but it's also going to squash the top. So there's less variance between the super quiet and the very loud. So it goes, and it makes it sound better. Because, like, if I do this, I'm talking at this level, my voice has a certain quality, but if I lean in and whisper, it has a different quality. What I want to do is keep the quality difference without having necessarily a huge swing in volume difference. So the compressor goes and just allows you to keep the quality without having to have huge volume differences between the two things. Cool? Again, it's kind of cool what it does. Now, I hit compressor and up comes this dialog box. truth be told, these are the stock settings of the compressor in Audacity. And if you are an anal retentive engineer, audio engineer, you might mess with this. In 223 episodes, I have never changed a setting in this, but watch what it does. Again, you'll be able to tell pretty darn quickly what it does. I hit apply. It does its thinking. Kaboom. It totally changes the volume intensity of the waveform without peaking beyond and distorting the signal at all. And again, this is just about making the episode sound better. You would never do this with music because you wouldn't take a whole track and just compress the crap out of it. Well, some people would, and it would sound really bad. Music has to have those nuances between dynamics of super loud, really quiet, and you don't want to lose that performance. But in an audio voice conversation like a podcast, it just helps the listener because half the listeners are going to be listening on lesser quality stereo speakers. Others are going to be having earbuds or something like that. And some people are going to have just crappy laptop speakers. You want to create a podcast that sounds good for all listeners. So this is a great way to do that. Compression allows you to do that. Now, the third thing I like to do with Audacity, because it has a really great tool, is create an MP3. Now, once again, because unfortunately my screen's not showing it to you, in Audacity, I go to the top navigation under File, and it'll show me Export. I hit the Export and then Export as MP3. Remember when I said that AIF was going to be a pretty big file? Well, it really is kind of big. So let's see if I go to the actual folder that this thing is in, you can see the AIFF file is 213.3 megabytes in size. That's big. I don't want it to be that big because that'll really cause problems or could potentially cause problems with my podcast host and stuff like that. So instead, I want to turn it into a MP3. Now, a lot of audio people will say, for a voice podcast, you can get away with 128 kbps as your bitrate quality. I don't like that. I can hear the difference. So I go at 192. Why? Once again, because I can tell the difference. And then I'm going to leave it at stereo. Now, I could do joint stereo and all that stuff, but frankly, this is a poor man's audio engineering thing, not a punctilious little perfectly everything must butt together conversation that you might have with a professional audio engineer. And again, I might be doing some of this wrong. I don't care. You know, to be honest, I'm doing what I can do free in my basement on a Sunday to get a podcast episode up for delivery at 3 a.m. Monday morning. Yeah, I am that procrastinator, which might be you. But the bottom line is, I don't need to do everything perfect. I need to make it as good as I can make it based on the tools and time I have to do that. That's what I'm doing here. So anyway, back to this bad boy. And 192. So let's see what happens here. I've already selected the, well, here, I'll show you again. I'm going to Command A the entire file so that it will actually do the whole file. I'm going under to the top navigation, File, Export. Export is MP3. Up comes this dialog box. Make sure that I'm in the correct folder where I want it to go. Right there. MP3 192. And this is one of the main reasons I use Audacity. When I save this, up comes this, edit metadata tags. Thank you. Oh, and the beautiful part is I can do this. I can load some pre-existing metadata tags that automatically populates. And all I have to do is make sure that I've got the right episode number in there. track number 223 is episode number for me. And it's got all my, necessary stuff so that the meta tags associated with my podcast are correct. I'm going to save this because I'm going to use this again next week. Make sure to do an overwrite so that I get the right podcast episode back in there. I'm going to replace that. And now I'm going to click this, and it's going to do its thinking to create me a MP3 that is encoded at 192 kbps. And it's going to sound as good, just about, well, maybe not as good as NPR or Radiolab's production, because they have professional audio engineers doing this stuff. But it's going to sound better than 90% of the podcasts out there because I take the extra time to do it right. So, okay, this is all done. I'm going to go ahead and quit out of here. Do I want to save this? No, I don't want to do this because I can recreate this if I want. So, I actually did cancel. Hold on. I'm going to quit out of here. I'm not going to save this because I'm definitely going to save this and quit. I'm now going to open up this bad boy and go to my Heather Ewing episode. And you can see right there the difference in size. The AIF file is 213 megabytes. The MP3 file is 28.1. So it's almost 10% of the AIFF file. But let's take a look at this, and I'm going to double click so we can do a quick listen. Hold on. Here we go. What people who are listening to the podcast don't know is that you and I met because of happens to be the very best thing of skipping to the end. Discover, craft, and communicate the completely true, completely you brand you already are. That's available at Amazon.com too, so I hope you'll pick up a copy. That's it for this week on the Nonfiction Brand Podcast. I am your host, as always, DP Knudten, and she is
Heather Ewing, Abstract Commercial Real Estate.
And we'll be talking at you again next week. Bye-bye. See, boom, right there. The podcast episode is done. It's encoded as an MP3, and it is ready to be posted to Podbean, the podcast hosting service that I use. The only thing, I try to minimize my costs on all this stuff because, again, I don't have unlimited funds, unlimited time, unlimited interest even. Instead, I do what I can do to make it as good as I can possibly make it, given the fact that I don't have a lot of time, don't have a lot of money, don't have a lot of extra creative energy that I want to spend. Instead, I want to do it efficiently. So today, let's just back up and say, what did I show you? I showed you how to finish a podcast in GarageBand and then bounce it over to Audacity, which is a free program. By the way, Audacity is available for macOS. It's available for Windows. It's even available for Linux. So if you have operating systems other than Macintosh, you're fine. And frankly, I could do all my podcast editing in Audacity, and many, many people do. I choose to use GarageBand. Why? It's prettier. Sue me for wanting things to be aesthetically pleasing. Well, it's not only prettier, it's a little bit easier in some cases when it comes to handling clips or doing what I do in it. Again, I could do it all in Audacity. I choose not to. And guess what? There's no degradation in quality by bouncing it as an AIFF file to Audacity. By doing it at the highest possible quality, Audacity gets it at the highest possible quality. And the few things I do with it in Audacity are then at the highest possible quality when I then turn it into an MP3. Again, good ingredients up front. Maintain the quality of those ingredients throughout the process. And then when you actually have to cook it to turn it into an MP3, it's going to be delicious. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's it for today. I want to remind you that, as always, that IMNSHOW is brought to you by this bad boy. Nonfiction Brand. Discover, craft, and communicate the completely true, completely you brand you already are. Who's that dude on the cover? Why, that's me. Why is my photo on the cover? Are you a raging narcissist? Don't answer that question. Instead, get the book and you'll find out why my flippin' photo is on the cover of the book. It's available at Amazon.com. I hope you'll check it out there. Just search for Nonfiction Brand Knudten, spelled, well, you can see it right on the screen. DP Knudten, K-N-U, D as in David, T as in Tom, E as in Edward, N as in nothing. That's it for me today. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch another edition of IMNSHOW, in my not so humble opinion, the occasional live stream where I share, I talk, I gripe, I vent, I do all sorts of stuff, but all in the furtherance of my personal brand and hopefully the ability for you to do what you should be doing to build your personal brand. Because let me tell you, we're in the age of AI now. The only way to fight AI is to lean into your humanity. So get out there, lean into your humanity, and do that today. That's it. I'm going to say bye-bye now. Bye-bye now.